Everybody move!
Well, it's more the beach, but close enough.
It's hot out there in these streets. And
Yeah.
that's why we're bringing you the review of the recent album, RTJ4.
Run the jewels fast. Run the jewels fast.
Fuck up the slow-mo.
So you could fuck up the slow-mo.
LP is from New York, and Killer Mike is from Atlanta. And so I'm representing the Yankees. Where my Yankees so tilted, I actually walk with a hunch.
Yeah.
Where my Yankees so tilted, I actually walk with a hunch. Fuck, my hat disappeared.
Yeah.
Where my... Fuck.
Yeah.
Where my Yankees so tilted, I actually walk with a hunch. I'm Mummies on Main Street, Mr. Method Mike A. He's representing the ATL, the Atlanta Braves. Wait a minute.
I don't like the Braves. They're in the same division as the Mets, so it's like, fuck them. I really have nothing to represent the state of Georgia. The only two things I had, and we were joking about it, I have an Allman Brothers band shirt, but I decided to go a little bit totally make people think. And I wore a Winnipeg Jets t-shirt. The Winnipeg Jets were at one time the Atlanta Thrashers. The original Winnipeg Jets moved to Arizona and became the Phoenix Coyotes in 1996-97. And the Atlanta Thrashers moved and became the new Winnipeg Jets in 2011. A+ for effort, F- for execution.
Nice. It'll do, man. It'll do. Yeah. This one felt very pertinent to do at this moment. There's a lot to do with, there's literally specific lines in it about police chokeholds that, they've kind of been talking about this for years now, being that this is the fourth album, but it just really hits hard right now, especially. And they actually dropped the album digitally a few days earlier than they were going to because of the circumstances we've been in socially with the murder of George Floyd and all the protests going on at the moment. And this is almost a must-listen record for the year.
Killer Mike recently in the news, I think it was about, it was recently, it was a week and a half ago, and just coming out in the city of Atlanta and just urging all the protesters to be peaceful and think about what they're doing and talk about the whole social situation in America right now. There's certain albums you hear, and off the top of my head, like Sgt. Pepper, Pet Sounds, where they're it's not just a form of entertainment, it's important to the era that it was released. And I think, as you said, Tim, this album is very important. This is going to be something that kids in history textbooks or history e-textbooks or whatever they use 20 years, 40 years from now are going to be reading about. Like during 2020, the COVID situation, George Floyd murder, unfortunately, which is terrible, the protest after, and Killer Mike being part of it in the city of Atlanta, and how he kind of came out as a philanthropist and an organizer, and kind of spoke about it and calmed everybody and just said, hey, here's how you should be doing it. Here's some things to think about. And then put out the album. And he didn't use his platform to promote this album at all. He kept both of them completely just in their own worlds, which is kind of cool. But the fact that he said what he had to say, which is very important to the community. And then he also, and him and LP released this album pretty much in sync with it.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is about this album is they were planning to release it around this time anyway. It's like it is one of those weird cultural moments where the art totally fits the moment. I mean, unfortunately, like you wish it wasn't the case that it blended together so well considering these circumstances, but it does hit that much harder because it's so on the ball. I knew LP, I knew his work. I followed his solo work pretty extensively. I had all his solo albums, and I knew he did an album with Killer Mike. Someone had put me on to that one. So I knew they had worked together for Killer Mike's solo album. And then I heard they were doing an album together called Run the Jewels, and they had the hand deal on the front. The fist was holding the chain, and it was like, give up the chain, man. So just the cover alone really stood out. And then when I heard the album, it blew my mind because It was just these two just kind of behemoths of the rap world meeting and becoming even bigger and greater than they were individually. And they've actually gone with this similar design with the hand gestures for every single album cover. Killer Mike in an interview talk about how, like, the third album, the hands had turned to gold because it was signifying a maturation that instead of, for instance, needing to steal the jewels, at that point, the hands had become gold. They didn't need the jewels anymore. So that's why on the third album cover, they're gold. Now on here, they're still pretty gold, but I don't know the exact history behind this particular cover, this brand new one. Because again, this just came out. So we're fresh off boat with this one. It's actually kind of become a movement, if you will, like on the stage. They're repping the gesture. They get everybody in the crowd doing it. But yeah, I appreciate that they stuck with that aesthetic for all of the 4 albums. When an artists do that, it's a sense of cohesiveness with the albums. I know I probably will bring up Danzig a lot on our podcast, but Danzig 1 through 4, you know, they're basically numbered 1 through 4. So I mean, there's also other ones after that that you may not necessarily want to listen to. But just to bring to that point of 1 through 4, this kind of goes in a classic realm of albums that, you know, a lot of times there's a 1 through 4. I think Led Zeppelin 1 through 4 is considered their best albums. You would know everything about that compared to me. And this is RTJ 1 through 4. So who knows? Maybe they'll come back with 5 and it'll be a complete flop. But I do appreciate that. It's fun for the fans, you know. It makes it. It really does cater to the fans.
I always think about, this is going to be a little strange and take it to a different realm, but for heavy metal, Megadeth with Vic or Iron Maiden with Eddie, those
exactly. Yeah, it's the same type of premise. Yeah.
Yeah, they show up on older albums or throughout, and it's kind of, or even Rush with the Starman, or the Star Child, I should say. So he was on a lot of their albums for a very long time. LP's very New York. What was that project he did, the rap group he did in the 90s? The name is escaping me right now.
Company Flow.
Company Flow. I was going to say Collective something, but yeah, so he's been around. He's been in this game in New York for a very long time. Killer Mike, big in Atlanta for a very long time. How did these guys meet?
I just heard a little bit of the interview that LP did with Talib Kweli, and after being with Company Flow on Raucous, that he made the label Def Jux, and he was working with all his artists that were on his label. And I think just from even just knowing the catalog, it looked exhausting because he did a lot of the production, and meanwhile he's also doing his own albums. So he must have just been in the studio 24/7 most of the year. So it was a lot. And I think at that point, maybe it was like 2012, 2013, he wanted to just start focusing on his own stuff. I guess he was asked to work on Mike's solo album, and he was saying in the interview, like, I didn't really even want to do it. I was just like, we'll do a couple of songs and I'll get it over with, kind of thing. So he flew down to Atlanta. The 2 of them met, just really hit it off. And after that point, he wound up doing like the whole album. And then they started working on the Run the Jewels stuff.
So I've known about LP for many years. I think you introduced me to him back, and also Killer Mike separately in the aughts or the 2000s or whatever you'd call them. That album, I think it's I'll Sleep When I'm Dead, or the 2007 one that LP put out, where he had Trent Reznor on. And so that was interesting to me. And a coworker of mine who still friends with to this day, she was a big 9 Inch Nails fan. And so I remember kind of like, oh, I wanted to hear that and just kind of pass it on to her because she was like obsessed with Trent Reznor. And okay, this is kind of a cool album.
I think the line, wasn't there the line in that song? I love the line because it really made me think. There are no atheists in the foxhole.
I totally missed
that.
It.
Really just makes you think. It's just like,
yeah.
Damn, that hit me like, wow. I mean, you could be, you know, not believe in God all you want, or, you know, not believe in anything, but when shit hits the fan, everybody's kind of clamoring for something, some kind of hope. So I thought that was a really deep line. I don't know. I'm sure it's like he maybe didn't necessarily come up with it. Maybe it was a term from the Army, but still, just to have that in there, and that goes to a lot of what they rap about.
I know we joke about science fiction, and I'm not going to mention that certain TV show, which you know I love, and you kind of hate when I met. But LP, he was very influential.
Wait. What are you trying to do here?
Trying to talk about how LP is big into sci-fi and Philip K. Dick, and it's relevant to his music. So he's a big sci-fi.
I thought you were talking about.
No, I'm not going to talk about Star Trek at all.
No, he said it. He said the magic words.
Yeah.
Or the unmagic words, I suppose.
I wish this was like Pee-wee's Playhouse, like things could just pop out, like Jan just pop out of nowhere.
We need to get some more production value on this. Like Cherry should be like, rah, 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 every time you say Star Trek.
Yeah, like puppets, or I get slime. Like you can't do this on television.
Yes, can we slime you every time you bring up Star Trek?
I don't know. Get it? Well, I went to Coachella 2013. It was an awesome experience. I know there's a lot of stereotypes about Coachella and about it's basically an Instagram post and people want to go and wear flowers in their hair, but I had a great time. This is when Cancer for Cure came out and he was playing a set. And so I was like, oh shit, LP's playing? Yeah, I'm going to go see this. And I went over and watched him play, and it was a great 40-minute set. And he even apparently it was Killer Mike's birthday, and he even stopped the set and was like, all right, everybody, we're going to leave a message for Mike. And he got the entire crowd to say, fuck you, Killer Mike. And it was good. It was a great set, and it was cool. And that was the last proper solo album he put out. And then RTJ started pretty much immediately after.
So I saw LP back in the Def Jux days. I believe it was like a Def Jux showcase at Roseland Ballroom. So he had all the Def Jukies, that's what they were called, out. He had like Cannibal Ox, Hangar 18 was another one of the groups. They brought out this one dude. He never made a big name from my understanding, but his name was Rob Sonic. And he was just like this big white dude, this big heavy white dude. And they like, hold up. We got to bring out Rob Sonic. Rob Sonic? Yo, Rob Sonic got that slow shit. And it was the best introduction because he was just this big ass white dude came out, and like the beat was like real muddy and slow. And he just had the presence, man. I don't know whatever happened to Rob Sonic, but the way that went down at the show, it was like, oh shit, Rob Sonic's got that slow shit. And the other main thing I remember about that show, you could tell LP was like the grand maestro of the whole thing. Obviously, it was his label, but you could tell he was the top dog, obviously. And then when he rapped too, he just had it. And the one main thing too I remember is towards the end, it's like, everyone throw your hands in the air, blah, blah, blah. But his was good because it was right after Christmas time. And he just goes, yo, if you got a Foreman Grill for Christmas, throw your hands in the air. And that is such a typical type of gift that, especially at that time, people were given, was the Foreman Grill.
Like those kind of Christmas gifts and like wedding registry gifts always crack me up because it's how often something on my bucket list, like a Christmas gift or a wedding registry. I want to actually go and use something that I bought somebody on a wedding registry. And I tried to a couple of years ago, but my friend who moved to Boston is like, nah, we got rid of that in 2011. It's like, fuck you, man. Like we spent $300 on that shit and you got rid of it 6 years later. Fuck. Not cool.
Don't even go to the wedding registry. Just get them a Foreman Grill. Let's call it a day. All right, so let's get into it. RTJ4. Right off the top, you got Yankee and the Brave. And obviously it's the reference to the two cities.
I wonder if War Tour, the Tribe Called Quest track from '93, because they have a line about coming with more hits than the Braves and the Yankees, and I wonder if they were thinking about, because these are two guys who are a little bit older, they've been in the game for a long time in hip hop, and I wonder if that was in the back of their minds, and they're fans of music.
Look at that, man. I didn't even think of that one, man. That's a good pull right there. This thing slaps right out of the gate. Killer Mike comes on the mic right away. He's back at it like a crack addict. That's the first line of the whole thing. So it's just, and the beat just slaps like right from the start. Also, the other thing I wanted to note about this is I always appreciate in LP's verses how he can get away with using words like charlatan, but make it work. It's like, no, you never hear anyone use the word charlatan anymore, but it's kind of almost like an old English in a way.
It's like a Shakespeare.
But he makes it work.
Yeah, something you hear in Shakespeare, like charlatan, fraud, get this heathen, or something like that, and it's cool. Like, I definitely did appreciate that and laugh at it. Yeah, man, this track is it's no bullshit. They just, sometimes during albums, a lot of groups will have a spoken word thing or a build up to the first track, or this is just a little quick like sound snippet, and it's boom, and it's the blast beat, as they call it, that boom, 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 boom. There's some Sonic Youth track off Daydream Nation which uses the blast beat before it became a big thing in hardcore, but they use that, and then the drums just go into that nasty groove throughout the entire track, and it's a nice, concise, less than 3-minute track. Gets right into the album. These guys are back, they're in business, and
back at it like a crack at it.
Yeah. Ooh la la. You want to get into that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, lead it off.
Well, when I first heard this track, I think you know where I'm going to go with this, and I just started laughing, because for me, ooh la la means something totally unrelated. I was like, well, is this going to be about fucking Sasson jeans? Because
that's a reference right there. That's, yeah. I bet you LP probably knows about the commercial just being from New York and growing up that time, but
yeah.
Oh man, that's a stretch beyond stretch. That's more of a stretch than you wearing the Winnipeg Jets for the Atlanta Thrashers.
Yeah. So for anybody who's unfamiliar, I'll make it quick. So I'm a big Rangers fan, as you can see over there. So the Rangers had a pretty good team in the late 70s, and they were kind of stylish. And they did some infamous commercials for Sasson jeans, which is no longer around. Jeans are the majority of the time, but if you just YouTube Rangers Sasson, it's hilarious, and it's kind of become.
We'll put that one in the description.
Yeah. Ooh la la Sasson. So there you go. They actually made 2 of them. So when I first heard it, I was like, oh, is this gonna be? Are they gonna sample the Sasson jeans or something like that?
That would have made your day, man.
I would have been cracking up. But actually, in terms of sampling or production, or I believe our good friend from the previous episode makes another, Mr. Primo.
Yes.
Primo Italian Sausages. DJ Premier makes another appearance here. Was he a rapper or was he a producer in this? Because he's featured. I don't think he wrote this, but he produced it perhaps, and maybe even rapped on it. Or you could shed a little light.
So the 2 singles were Yankee and the Brave, which they just released as an audio track, and they had some badass artwork with it too. That ties in with the 2 of them getting away in a car, and but that one was just released as an audio track. Ooh La La had a whole video shot. They must have shot it right before COVID-19 broke out, because it's basically them in the city. I think it's supposed to be right in Wall Street, and they're just burning a gigantic pile of money. And they have the featured guests on here, Greg Nice from Nice and Smooth, one of the best hip hop duos, definitely up there in the. I don't know about the top 10 just because they didn't have the longevity, but I would put them in the top 20 for sure. Nice and Smooth. They were one of the best trade-off gimmicks ever. It literally was nice and then smooth being for real in the flesh. See, they had the 2 different styles, and Nice and Smooth. It just made sense. So that's where Greg Nice is from. Greg Nice also guested on a lot of Beatnuts tracks back in like late 90s, early 2000s. So his voice is just iconic, and he's just got such a clear, great voice for hooks. So if you need a clear, great hook, call Greg Nice. And as far as Premier, from the video, I think it's just Premier doing the scratches is my take on it. Because LP did all of the production on this album, as he does with all the albums. Believe, at least from what Wikipedia is telling me, that LP would have been the sole producer on that. So I think DJ Premier just does the scratches. There are other associate producers on this album, because I don't think you could do it all by yourself at this point with some of the crazy production they have and just how big the project has gotten. So the third track is called Out of Sight, just a super crunchy beat. Again, just a crunchy ass slap your face beat. This beat will beat your system up. You need to have like a proper car system to have this beat. I think Master Ace, Born to Roll. You remember that track?
A little bit.
Yeah, so that track was famous for being, it's about playing your song loud in your car, your hip hop song loud in your car. Your beat is just like, you can, it's all about the subwoofer, and that track really made that famous. That, I believe Master Ace would be proud of a beat like this. And they got special, again, just to say how they've gotten bigger. Their guest on this track is 2 Chainz, and he's a pretty giant artist in his own right. You know, MCs have their own calling, like
their own gimmicks, or back to wrestling, where their own themes or gimmicks, or like the whole Ghostface is Tony Stark's or whatever it is, and or sayings that they commonly use.
Exactly, the sayings. So I realized that LP's is just, hey.
Oh, well, it's really funny you mentioned
Very New York. It's a very New York. Like when he says it, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of how I talk. Like, hey, what are you doing? Hey, like, there's a very New York thing. So for his moniker to be, hey.
What is he, the fucking Fonz or something like that? I mean, are we gonna play the LP? Are we gonna play?
I don't think it's not. Hey, it's hey. Yeah, it's a very New York. Hey.
Yeah, it reminds me of like.
What are you doing? Hey.
Yeah,
I saw these guys almost get in a car accident on my block a few years ago, and it was one of my favorite exchanges of all time. Because one guy was making an illegal U-turn, the other guys they almost got in an accident. So they both start getting out of their car. Yeah, you should have done this. Yeah, you should have done that. And then one guy goes, hey, you want to know what? You want to know what? Hey, fuck you. Just him asking him, you want to know what? Like the guys will be like, oh, well, what? What is it? Hey, fuck you. Do you want to know what? Hey.
I think we could definitely have the LP drinking game. How many times they sample him going, hey, throughout an album, and see if we'll leave it at tequila shots or something. We won't go quite Everclear because nobody wants to get their stomach pumps, but that would be an interesting challenge to take one day. A couple of quick things I have to say about the Out of Sight. Well, it was better than that movie with George Clooney and Jennifer Lopez, which I think came out during the era of drizzle and shit. This is a funky ass beat, that bump 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 bump. It was cool. It was almost like a 9 Inch Nails type thing. And I know we talked about earlier how LPS worked with Trent Reznor, which is interesting how he got him. But there was a lot of industrial sampling throughout the album. And so these guys obviously were big into 9 Inch Nails and maybe Marilyn Manson and all that TVT record stuff, like that band Prick back in the day, all that gothic stuff, Front 242, Nitzareb. It's cool, but it's funky. This is just like a funky beat. And I did like that line. He talks about menace to sobriety. And that just kind of made me laugh a little bit. Like, very thematically in the album, the tracks are not super long.
The longest track on this album until the last track is only 3 minutes, 56 seconds.
Yep, compact, easy to get through. And that was methodical and purposely done.
And as much of a message as this has overall, which is, I think, the most important factor to it. You know, remember, this is also a group where I remember LP, he said, I have a unicorn horn for a cock. so like, there's a lot of, between all the seriousness, there's a lot of, you know, frivolity as well that you can just kick back and laugh at. So it's, you know, which is great, because you can't have something that's all super, super serious all the time. So you got to look at the bright side or the funny side of things. And they're great at blending those two worlds. Yeah, the next track, sorry.
Holy Kalamafuck, I think it is. There's so much going on. Like, this track is crazy. There's so much going on here. There's a lot of different shifts. It has this polyrhythmic drums, almost like a J-Ru last week using drums as like a melody, so it had that. Then it gets into this weird like industrial Nine Inch Nails thing again. The middle of this album has a lot of industrial sampling in there. And then
this is really LP's wheelhouse, man. Just these raw dystopian beats. I mean, this is always what he's been known for, back to like even some of the Company Flow stuff too. He's always had this like Blade Runner, and actually they came out with a poster called Jewel Runner. The Philip K. Dick and the sci-fi thing, it's always been a theme with his work, and the beats sound like they're sci-fi.
A very dystopian future, purposely, in the vein of bands like Zombie, who has a new album coming out soon, and Trans Am. That whole synths, machines take over humanity. And you know who will show up on this track, which I was like, oh, it's really interesting. And and you could hear it. You know that part with the bass? It's the third movement, as I call it, where the bass is doing that weird like all over the place.
Yeah.
Dave Sitek from TV on the Radio. I'm like, okay, New York connection. Siddick's been a producer for a long time. This is something off his Maximum Balloon album, which came out about 9-10 years ago. It sounds right in a wheelhouse. He also played in Jane's Addiction as their bass player for a little bit and worked on an album with them. So he's been around a block, and you know, he knows stuff. And then this track ends. It has that weird chord the ascending chord progression, which I like to call the Pink Floyd progression. It just reminds me of Pink Floyd and a lot of their classic work. And then it goes back to the middle and has this like dubstep, weird futuristic dubstep thing going on. And then I don't know how political this one is. Mike started talking about where he's from and kind of a little bit of his origins and how he grew up.
One of my favorite lyrics from it is just, "You hate RTJ, you don't love the troops." But he's obviously being sarcastic about it. See, it's very smart. Like, the lines are super, super smart. And then there's sometimes lines about my cock is a unicorn horn.
It's very interesting. The next Goonies versus E.T. That was an interesting, more industrial again, and 80s synth. And then it uses that like classic James Brown beat at times for its background to get a little groovy and funky.
You know, so LP's father was a jazz pianist. And I think he had a lot of influence, you know, just from having a father that was involved with jazz. And you can hear that like bugged out jazz in this song, that crazy ass saxophones.
One thing that made me kind of be like, oh, and I think it was a Killer Mike line where he talks about ain't no revolution that won't be televised and digitized. And like, that was cool. That was a nice little thing he put in there. Gil Scott-Heron, the movement for civil rights and equality in the 1970s. That's like a classic all-time American. It's just part of American history and everything going on in the explosion in the early 70s. So anybody check out Gil Scott-Heron, spoken word. There's a lot of play on nostalgia, especially now, and a lot of bringing it back. I didn't understand the title and what it was supposed to mean in terms, maybe if it's something political or if it's a callback to their childhood, or you think Goonies versus E.T., that's like 1980s culture right there. But I just didn't understand what it was meaning.
I wasn't so much as focused on the deep, deep meaning, because there might be one. Knowing them, there probably is. I know he mentioned the bear, like LP mentioned the Bad News Bears. And I thought I did, geek out a little bit about the reference. So it was like, oh, cool. Like, when do you hear a rapper talk about the Bad News Bears? I don't know. I'm sure it had something to do with nostalgia.
Maybe it's a play on the whole on this administration's take on immigration, because E.T. is an alien and the Goonies were like a gang, and maybe like a ganging up or trying to fight aliens, and wrongfully so. That's the only thing I could think of. I don't really know, but maybe it's very far. Maybe I should take some drugs to get these thoughts out of my head, but maybe not. Somebody could definitely put in the comments if even in the same stratosphere.
I mean, well, these guys do profess a big love for weed, so it could have just been like a weed song. What should we call it? Goonies versus E.T.
And sometimes potheads, as we all know, it's sometimes there's a stereotype about potheads being Cheech and Chong.
Keep on knocking, but you can't come in.
Yeah. So
all right.
Now the album starts to get very political and very relevant. I think Walking in the Snow, Gangsta Boo shows up on here.
Woo! Woo!
And
she was on Run the Jewels too, on one of my favorite tracks.
Yeah, she's cool. Not very well known to the masses, but she's left her mark. Yeah, Mike gets very political here. I think his rapping is a little stronger on this one. Where he talks about just kind of like standing up and saying what's right, representing the African American people, and how he's worried. He's going to show up on WikiLeaks and be called a traitor because he's saying what he feels is the truth and things of that nature. He has some points to make about the community and just socio-political situation in the United States in 2020. And he said, look, I'm going to say what I'm going to say, and people may call me a traitor, people may kill me, but fuck it, I'm going to do this because I have to do this. Walking in Snow, I know that's a very literary reference about walking in snow, like covering up old foot tracks, or
Ethan Frome.
Yeah, like Ethan Frome or Catcher in a Rye with like rain or whatever. Using weather to kind of wash away your scars or symbolically move past something. Snow, of course, being strenuous, and I don't know. I don't like snow at all, man. To all these people who always post about White Christmas on social media, fuck you. Fuck snow. It's overrated. It sucks. So yeah, so get through snow, walk over snow, let it cover your tracks, and get to where you got to go. Snow's fun when you're 8, but fuck snow.
And they actually had, I think it was Killer Mike had the line about I can't breathe and the chokehold, and I was just like flabbergasted because I'm like, I don't think they did this track before George Floyd. I think it was just they were still talking about, all the previous ones, man. It's just so prophetic that they're actually talking about that on the track. I did like the self-awareness at the end of the track. They had like one of the voices coming in saying they're cheating because one of them's black and one of them's white. So if you don't like them, you're automatically racist. That was funny to hear the self-awareness of that.
Yeah, that was pretty funny, and I think breaking the fourth wall, and they have fun with that. I mean, if you listen to Mike's the time he was on Rogan, he did bring it up, and he had a lot of fun with it. So they're very aware. And
I'm trying to think, like, are there other this is the first group that I remember where it's like so successful, and it's a white dude and a black dude. The only thing that I can really think of, and I'm probably, I guess, like the Fat Boys, for instance, had like black and white guys in there. But you can't compare, like, love the Fat Boys, but, this is like galaxies beyond what they were doing. Except for those beatboxing. The other thing I can think of, the other group, it was, it's not really, I guess it is technically a group. It's Eminem and Royce the 5'9", Bad Meets Evil. The two of them are great together too, as a white MC and a black MC. But I can't think of one that's. I mean, they've been pretty successful enough, but like not. Run the Jewels is just huge at this point.
And Disorderlies is an awesome movie talking about the Fat Boys. I had to throw it in there. I love that movie. I freaking love that movie. And Eminem, I just can't get into the guy, man. He's like he's one note to me. He just talks about the same thing. He's always back. He's always going to hurt his ex-wife, and his daughter is going to be psychologically scarred. It's every album, every fucking thing. I can't get into him. Maybe it's because he came up at the end of the era of the drizzle and shit. Just is a fascinating track. This is a very political track, very important track, very thought-provoking track. That being said, did I love it? Not exactly. There was a little bit of bias going into here because I love the Close Your Eyes, the track they did with Zach De La Rocha on Run and Jules 2. And I'm a huge Pharrell fan. I think he's him and Chad Neptune are awesome producers. I love Pharrell as a performer. I love NERD. I love his track, Travis Barker from Blink-182. Pharrell did this funky ass track. So I'm a big Pharrell guy. And I was really excited, like, oh shit, you got Zach De La Rocha who's gonna bring it, and then you got Pharrell who's always awesome, always funky, always cool. And Pharrell here, like, I like what he's saying, and I think people are overall going to like what he has to say. And you're gonna laugh at this. This was too modern to me, man. Like, Pharrell's flow and the track and the beat was just too modern. Like, I just didn't like the way it came off. And Zach De La Rocha too, I like what he did, but he was a little underutilized until the end. I know it's very similar to what he did with the Run to Jules 2 track. But so that being said, is it an important track, and are most people going to like it? Yes. Am I going to personally listen to it in my spare time?
No.
Fair enough. To me, I thought this was the best track of the album. I do like that Zach De La Rocha shows up in a lot of things. He showed up in the music video for Ooh La La. He's kind of like the third member of the group, kind of like a Jerobi from A Tribe Called Quest is like the fourth member, the silent fourth member that'll show up once in a while. So he's kind of like an unofficial member. I love all the input from everybody. It just, to me, this blends together perfectly with people's talents. It looks like LP was the only producer on this one. So I thought, which was surprising because I thought we were going to see that that Pharrell had been a producer, but I guess he just adds in some vocals. And the line, "Look at all these slave masters posing on your dollar," it is really impactful. It really Absolutely. Makes you think, because money runs the world and everybody's all about money, 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 money. And you know, how many times do you ever sit there and look at it? You know, look what's actually on it. So, especially in a time like right now, when there's been so much racial inequity throughout history and people are, you know, really standing up at this moment. And you look at the very thing that we hold most dear as Americans. In a lot of cases, these people own slaves. So what's that say to, you know, a black person? What's that say to a Hispanic person, or anyone who's not white? You know, what's it say to them? And, you know, but when this is our most important thing. So that really stood out to me.
We think of, you know, these politicians as these larger than life people, but they were very flawed also. And a lot of them, especially the older ones, did own slaves or didn't have very, what they thought about society, about other cultures it just wasn't accurate.
And again, they mentioned the chokeholds. It's just unbelievable how, I don't want to say it was ahead of its time because it was talking about stuff that had already happened, but then it happened again, right before this album dropped. So crazy stuff, man. I personally liked the blend of all the different characters on this.
So next trick, feel free, you can introduce Never Look Back.
The beat reminded me of like Stranger Things, that almost had that kind of, which, you know, we get some of the 80s references in here.
There's a comedian, an Instagram comedian who we appreciate. His name's Don Terrio Hundon, and he does this thing called barbecue, where it's like a roast, but it's a barbecue. It's even more than a roast. And so when I first heard his track, to pay homage to Don Terrio, it's like, I gotta bake another one on, baby. Yo, barbecue. You motherfuckers took this right from Kraftwerk. Kraftwerk synthesizer beat ass. The next track just made me laugh. Like, I was just like cracking up right away because that's such an iconic track. The Ground Below. They sampled Ether, which is Gang of Four, the first track off the Entertainment album from the late 70s. I think it's like 1979, 1980. Shout rest in peace, Andy Gill just recently passed away from that band. He was a producer, he was their guitar player. And there's actually a line in here that LP references. He says he's born from the ether. So I'm like, I see what you did there.
Can't get one past the Method Mike.
I would have liked to see them mess around with the track a little bit more. They did kind of manipulate it towards the end, where they took that bass line and distorted it and made it put the flanger, the flan, that weird effect.
Flanger.
Yeah,
flanger.
I don't even know what you call the guitar, the effect pedal.
I did find this one was like cool because it breaks things up a bit. It's almost like a rock song. It sounded like a live band was playing on this. Or you think that was just such a great sample of Gang of Four?
Such a great that sample's taken right from that's a live album. You could tell that was probably recorded live and probably done in only one or two takes, but those guys really had it, and it's cool. It's a really cool sample. But is this track anti-religion? Because it seemed to me like it was talking about religion and just not being fooled by a higher power, or about also believing in yourself.
A lot of this, I think, is about self-strength. The only way to really get through something, get past something, is to conquer it yourself, to looking inwardly to your salvation instead of outwardly sometimes.
I don't know much to say about pulling the pin. The only thing, it is very it has a lot of characters on. Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age and Crooked Vultures is on here. Mavis Staples, she had a very interesting line. The lyrics are very abstract. I did crack up at one point, and this has to be intentional, is LP talked about, there's a line, he's a long-time watcher, first-time caller, and I was just like, yo, you asshole, you're from fucking New York, and you know where this is from. This is from WFAN, New York. Steve Summers, schmoozer, first time, long time. And that's a line that has been, a lot of people use when they call in. Mike Francesa hates it. He went on a whole rant about how he hates people saying first time, long time once. But that guy's such a grump. he would. He's such a fucking grump, that guy. For such a rich, successful guy, he's such a fucking grump. Maybe Run a Jewel should have a track called Francesa's a Grump, and just have them sample Jason Giambi over and over again. Mavis Staples, I like what she's saying. I didn't really. Josh Homme, I think, only just played guitar in this. Lyrically, I didn't really get what LP was talking about. LP's rap was very abstract. Mike's rap was more straightforward. The last track, so Firing Squad, that was interesting. So this is a non-hip hop track. You know what they did on this track for all you music nerds out there? They did a waltz. They used a waltz. They used a 6/8 feel with no beat. That's crazy. On a hip-hop album, that's some fucking balls, man.
See, I would not have realized that. That's why we need the musician to hear.
And it was 6/8, not 3/4, because you could tell 6/8 does have that ballroom, that waltz, that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4. The swimming music in Mario Brothers. So grab your ladies grab your men, and just
get ready for the firing squad.
Exactly. There were a lot of great lines here about it, how basically one guy's going to get killed, and his last line is like, fuck you, you won't win, they'll beat me, but you won't win. You know, Matt Sweeney, who was in Zwan, and also Chavez helped out. So LP's rap is more sci-fi again, and Mike's is more about a little sentimental, about his origins again, his mother. His family obviously means a lot to him. His mother, I believe, based on these lyrics, passed away from, I think, some form of cancer. And so I think part of his thing is he made a vow to her to just live up to his potential and help people.
Yeah, they seem to end every album with sort of a longer, powerful track. And this was right in line with that. And a great way to close out the album. I kind of liked that the longest track was at the end, because it let the whole album flow, and then it kind of brings it home at the end.
and it's interesting. Then it goes into the whole 70s Western / car chase thing at the end. It kind of starts, it kind of almost loops in a way. So maybe that's intentional too, where there's a sci-fi element to it, where sci-fi, a big theme of it is often time travel and displaced time. And the ending is actually the beginning because it's talking about the Yankee and the Brave and then getting away. I'm going on this, like, being like Smokey and the Bandit almost.
I just had to crack up when I heard that. It was almost kind of like a hidden track at the very end. It almost sounded like a knockoff of that track from about a year or two ago, Old Town Road. And it had like almost like a touch of auto tune in it. It almost sounded like they were kind of mocking that a bit, but it was catchy though. I was like, damn, I kind of wanted to hear more of that. I mean, it was so ridiculous and funny. And I love the narrator on that. It could have been like a Twilight Zone or something like that, you know, announcer.
Maybe they should get Sam Elliott for RTJ4. Just have him like and the Yankee and the Brave got away to live fight another day and rob another town, help all the people, rob the rich, give to the poor. Yep, that's what they did, a stranger.
Sometimes the bar eats you, and sometimes you eat the bar. No, just to say overall about the album, it seems the most fully formed of all four of them. The first one was, you know, the first one, and it had a lot of great stuff on it, but there maybe wasn't like every track you had to listen to. The second album, I thought was an instant classic when I heard it. The third one, I wound up liking a lot throughout time, but when I first heard it, it didn't stand out as much as the second one did to me. Now, when I heard this one today, this one had the same effect on me, similar to two. I think it's because of the length of the tracks. They're laser focused, and the bone crunching beats, man. They're bone crunching beats. So that's the album review for the week. Okay, so we're starting a new segment. If anyone has a good name for it, perhaps pool related, because we're trying to stick to that, everybody in the pool, let us know in the comments. We're basically going to talk about lingo. There's a lot of different lingo that we toss around. You may not necessarily know what it means. So this show's lingo that we're going to discuss, hand job charges.
Oh my God. Wow. Hand job charges. Oh, wow. Sure, I'll explain it. Yeah, absolutely. So back in the day, we used to go to a lot of concerts, and Ticketmaster, which still does, they always have the convenience charge. So it just pissed us off. Like, if a ticket's $36, it's going to be $36. Then there was always this convenience charge. Like, what was the point of it? You know, like the Guns N' Roses track Civil War, where Axl Rose is like, what's so civil?
What's so civil about war anyway, man?
So our friend Matt is his name. He just said something along the lines of, so, you know, what's so convenient about these charges anyway? If it's convenient, they may as well throw in free hand.
Did he say it as Axl Rose would have said, what's so civil about war anyway?
I don't think he said it like that. I don't think he did the snake dance. I don't believe he was wearing a bulletproof vest or a backwards bandana or anything of that nature. I think it was a lunchroom discussion, and basically he's like, what's so convenient about these charges anyway? If they're going to just like, if it's so convenient, throw in a free hand job. From that moment on, it became hand job charges. And anytime anybody would get ripped off, whether it involved convenience charges, Ticketmaster, or back when we were going to the clubs in our early 20s, where, you know, girls get in for free, guys have to pay $25. It's like, what is this fucking hand job charge going on, man? Like, this is a convenience. This is bullshit. There have been times in my life, in my professional life, as recently as the last year, where I actually did say, yeah, we got this convenience charge. Or
so you've almost slipped up at work saying it.
Absolutely, yeah. There was one time recently in the last year, I was absolutely in a meeting with mostly women, and I forget how it came up, some kind of charge or extra charge, and I literally said, yeah, this is like a convenient, you know, I had to stop myself, and it was pretty funny. I don't know if it made it on Zoom. Maybe it did, but I only got to the HA.
All right. We're guys, so we're lucky in the respect that we can kind of pee wherever we want to. Where is the most interesting place you've ever had to go pee?
I've pissed in so many places in pub. I got a hashtag wonky prostate, dude. So I've pissed so many places in public. I mean, I've even done something once where this is gonna sound terrible, but I had a Dunkin' Donuts coffee and I was taking an hour drive to Long Island, and so what did I have to do? You know, you drink a lot of coffee, and I drank water too, and it was a post run, which is never a good thing because you all know post workouts a lot of urination. So I definitely had to pull over from the highway and piss in the coffee cup, and by the time I got to Long Island, I had a nice cup of apple juice.
Yeah, I've had to pee in the car a couple of times while driving. The worst is if you only have a water bottle.
Yeah, because you got to.
Yeah, it's just, it does not work, man. It's just, you're gonna be splashing.
Yeah, because there's a couple of problems there. Number one, you're driving. Number two, you got to aim very precisely, and we all know like pissing in that. It's like in Star Wars, like Imperial troopers aim. You're just gonna shoot all over the place, and then and it's gonna get sloppy, and then eventually, and if you tap it, and you only have a finite volume. So you're going to tap it out, overflow it, and then you're going to make a mess in your pants or have to out the window, which would be very disgusting. And, you know, maybe because then there's other factors too. There's physics. Like if you're going a certain speed, there's a chance it's going to come right back in your face. That's one. Number two, there's a chance it's going to hit the person in the next car and shock them if it's not a rainy day and cause some kind of big accident on the highway. And that's not good because then you got to worry about vehicular manslaughter charges. That's not good either. And
all for having a wonky prostate.
All for having a wonky prostate. See, this is the kind of shit that happens. Didn't Natalie Portman do that movie recently, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds? And it was loosely, or it was about the diaper woman?
Pardon me? Diaper woman?
So do you remember that thing a couple of years back where I think she was like an astronaut or something like that, but her husband was having an affair, so she was trying to win him back. There's some interstate driving and shenanigans going on here, but apparently to do it quicker, she threw one of those like astronaut diapers on her and just was driving Mario Andretti speed trying to get to her husband and fuck up this woman that he was cheating on her with. I think that's how the story goes, and they made a movie.
That's love, baby. That's love.
It's love. Love has made humans do some very, very crazy things. New Orleans is a tough place for public urination, man. I've been there, and like it's no joke. If you whip out your dick and you're going to take a piss, it's not good, man. You will spend a night in jail. You have to pay bail, and you will have to go through shenanigans. I speak from
which is why I had to wait in line for a porta potty. There was so much pee in the porta potty already that it was leaking out onto the street right by everyone's feet that was standing in line to go pee. So you're going and peeing in there, and everyone who peed before you's pee is coming out on the ground, just so nobody would get a ticket, because everybody knew you can't pee outside in New Orleans. It's just going on the street anyway. It was really gross. I'll tell you, the best place that I ever found to publicly urinate is Detroit, because when we went there, there's just nobody around. You could be in the middle of the city. It was like during the middle of a Sunday, and there was just no one around in Detroit. So we were just like, well, we got to pee. So we just went and peed right there.
You know what they say? So sometimes the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the fewer to one, but the needs of the prostate outweigh the needs of the many. Hashtag wonky prostate. And I do have my local spots around here, which I frequent, and hopefully I'm
I have a couple of pee spots.
Yeah, I'm like a dog, man. I fucking get all in there, and hopefully I'm irrigating the soil or doing something good for a society.
We had one spot in college. We just called it the pee spot. Like everybody in my group knew that it's where it was. And after about 2 or 3 years of doing this, it was like you started to realize like, oh, this is awful, man. This is really awful. Like I didn't realize how much just pee stays on like cement. So if you pee on grass, I think you're good, but try to avoid the harder surfaces.
Yeah, if you're gonna be hard, listen to hard rap. Listen to hard, aggressive rap like Run the Jewels. Don't pee on hard areas. That's my public service announcement. And now you know, and knowing is half the battle. So Until next time.
Kids, strap on your Yankee hat, wear it with a tilt so you walk with a hunch, and
don't play with yourself too hard.
Here come the menaces to sobriety, like what? Super thuggers thumping on the cut.